I am so excited to be here with Paula Rizzo and have her on my show to talk about how you can avoid burnout and become more productive, which sounds like a contradiction, but we're going to dive into that. Welcome on the show, Paula.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, we'll figure it all out by the end. Don't worry.
Yes. So I met Paula at a workshop. We were doing the content workshop with Ali Brown earlier this year. There I also met so many amazing women, and Paula is one of those like, I am coming to New York. And we thought we would actually end up meeting face to face. This is really funny. You're in New York, I'm in New York as we're recording this episode, but we are not in the same room.
This is the story of New York. This is what happens. When you get here, it just, things are turned all around and you may not actually be in the same room, but I'm thrilled to chat with you anyway. So
yes. So before we dive into the topic, in detail, I always like to kind of understand where you're coming from, like why this topic, because when I met you earlier this year, it was all like PR, media, and I'm like, why is he writing a book on that? And how come this topic has become your topic? So what's the story?
Yeah, well, maybe eventually that'll be my next book. We'll see. But yeah, that's my background is in television. I spent close to 20 years as a TV producer here in New York, both in local news and then in national news. Most recently, I was at Fox News Channel as a senior health producer, where I produced all their health and wellness content. And I was there for over a decade. And so I was able to interview people like Deepak Chopra and Jillian Michaels, JJ Virgin, big powerhouses in the health and wellness industry. And, I had been working in this industry for a very long time, and television is to the second. You have to have things done. There are deadlines. You have to make sure if it's got to be 19 seconds, it's 19 seconds exactly. We think in seconds, not in minutes in television. And so that has sort of informed how I do everything in my life, working through deadlines, that kind of thing. So that's how the list making, the productivity, the time efficiency, time management, that's how that's all come through, because that's how I've been super successful. I won an Emmy Award for Best Newscast. So I've been very successful using the tools that help you to produce television. And so now I sort of have two arms of my business. One is where I'm a media trainer and strategist and coach. And then the other piece where I write books about productivity and list making. And now I have two of them.
So what is it about television? It feels very stressful. 19 seconds have to be 19 seconds, and deadlines, like you have to come up with especially if you're in some kind of a news position, I've seen sometimes behind the scenes. I've not actually worked in that kind of a role, but just seeing behind the scenes, you can imagine in the morning you say, I have to come up with 3 stories today and they have to be ready by 6 p.m. or whatever.
Yes,
that
exactly.
is a super stressful job.
Yes, it's super stressful, especially live news, because that newscast is going to go on the air with or without you. You better have something to show. And so, yes, it makes you really efficient. It makes you realize that you can't be a perfectionist. You have to just go with it and say, you know what, this is the path I'm going to take, because if I veer from this right now, I won't make my deadline. And I think so often, especially for entrepreneurs, we think, well, I could do this or I could do that, or maybe, and then we just talk ourselves out of doing one of them, where this is very, almost strategic. You have to pick and you have to go ahead with that, and I wasn't really using lists and checklists and time efficiency in the same way at home as I was at work. And so I started to quickly notice that I was a little bit of a disaster, which was not my style. I was forgetting things. I wasn't showing up on time. And I was like, what is the problem here? And I realized, I do need to use a little bit of this magic that I have learned in the TV world to be more efficient.
Actually, I think some kind of a day in that life would be good for some entrepreneurs, because I feel a lot of people delay decisions,
Mm-hmm.
And when you say, you have to come up with 3 stories and you have whatever 6 hours to do that, you can't be wondering even for 5 minutes whether this decision is correct or not. You just take one.
Yes, exactly. And it's, Seth Godin says, ship it, just get it out. You got to get it's the same thing. So that mentality has really helped me, in this new role now as an entrepreneur as well, to be able to say, hey, don't take yourself so seriously. Like, get going with this. We got to get it out there.
So just to, I'm so curious about the decision making. When you're making a decision and you have to make it so fast, that probably half of your decisions are going to be wrong, or it's not going to be the story that you hoped it would be.
Yeah. And, I think it's also about having criteria in your head right away and knowing exactly what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to, so that it makes it super easy to just filter. So for instance, in a television situation, right, if you're getting pitched, which you get pitched all day, every day, right? Thousands of pitches come through, and in a split second, you really know if that story is going to work or not, because through the lens with which your audience is looking. Okay. So your only thing is, does this matter to the audience? Do they care? Is this of service to them? So that's the filter that I would be looking at stories that come in. And so when I worked at Fox News Channel, our demographic at the time was older men. So when I was getting pitched stuff about back to school lunches, I knew, nope, that's not going to work. That's not my audience. They won't care. Yeah. So in the same way, I try to do that same sort of filtering for myself with the decisions and the things that I say yes to and the things that I say no to. And in the book, Listful Living, the new one, it's very much about picking what those boundaries are. What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? And having that criteria, but understanding what lens are you looking through? So what's your priority? If your priority is that you want to get more sleep because you're really tired and your doctor is telling you, hey, you got to get more sleep, then you're not going to say yes to networking events that are at night. You're not, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's very clear what the criteria is for those decisions.
I think this is super important. Now, I talk often about you got to have a vision, because then you know when to say yes and no to opportunities, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond, this big vision you're working towards. You can be lots more detailed so that you can make this decision fast. And then it helps you not to be overwhelmed, because if we're saying yes to everything, that causes overwhelm, and we know that can lead to at the end.
Oh, absolutely. And I know because that happened to me. My first book came out almost 5 years ago at this point. It's called Listful Thinking. And I was working full-time at Fox, and I was also, side hustle getting this book out into the world. So not only was I working full-time at night, then I was doing every networking event. I was every podcast, everything, I was asked to do. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Because I wanted to get it out there. And then about a year after the book came out, my appendix burst. And that is a very dramatic way for your body to tell you, you got to slow down and start listening to me, because I wasn't listening. I was in pain for 2 days. And I thought, I don't want to go to the ER, because if I go, I'm going to sit there forever and it'll probably be just food poisoning. And I just don't have time for that. So instead, my appendix burst. I guess I have a pretty high pain tolerance. It burst, and I was in the hospital for 8 days. I was pulled out of work on medical leave for 6 weeks. It took me almost a year to recover. I mean, I lost 12 pounds. It was really dramatic. That was life shifting. And after that happened, everything had to be taken off my to-do list. Everything, at work, at home. And the whole world still spun. It was amazing. I took the ego out of it. I was like, oh, it didn't actually have to be me to do all those things. And all the stuff still got done, right? And so I think it's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves a lot of the time to think, oh, it has to be me. I have to be the one to do it. That didn't happen. And when I looked at that list again and said, okay, now I'm going to be very intentional about what I actually let on this list, because now I really need to look at this in a different way. I was saying yes to way too many things, and I was not listening to myself at all.
Well, yeah, that is a dramatic thing, and we don't wish that on anyone, but
no.
There's a lot of women feeling overwhelmed. It's probably the word that I hear the most. And we wonder, why did we come to this place at this overwhelmed? Are we just saying yes to too many things, or is it something else? Are we trying to prove something?
Some of it is. I think a lot of it is self-inflicted. I think we need to look at ourselves and be able to say, hey, you're the one saying yes to these things. You're the one making this a priority when it might not be. But why? Is it because you feel important when you have that many things on your list? Is it, it's a lot of this is ego driven. And that is very much what I found, that a lot of the stuff I was saying yes to, it's like, that doesn't have to be yes right now. I could say yes in a month and that's okay. I had a bit of that scarcity mindset. I want an abundance mindset. I want to think, of course, more will be coming. Because you say no to this doesn't mean it goes away forever or all of your opportunities go away forever. I think reframing that was a really big deal for me as well, especially with the second book launch where, now I'm an entrepreneur, I'm working for myself. You could work all day, every day if you want. And I purposely do not. I really take a step back and say, how am I going to set up my day? And that's part of this book too, is to realize and recognize how you work best. Where do you feel more charged up? Is it in the morning? Is it at night? Then you stack your day that way. You stack what you do, what you work on in that way. So you're set up for success. And, the first year that I was in business for myself, I looked back and I did sort of an audit. I said, I'm going to look to see, how did I feel? And I was pretty burnt out. I was like exhausted. One day, I think I did like 7 or 8 calls in a day, my first week when I was working for myself. That's not sustainable. I didn't even know what I was talking about. I didn't even remember what advice I gave. So I took a step back and I said, what would be ideal for me? So for me, I don't want to start like talking to people until 11:30 a.m.
I like it because I'm a night person
myself. Yeah. And I realized that I don't want to just pop out of bed, get dressed and get going. That's not me. I don't love that. So now I've designed my day so that it runs a little bit later on in the day, but it works for me. And so this book really helps you to identify who is it that you want to become? What would you like to be doing? But also looking at, what are you doing now? Is it serving you? Are you okay with that? And then let's change it up.
Okay. So let's walk through some steps, because I love to have some steps or strategic advice for my listeners. So if someone is feeling like they have too much on their plate, what should they be doing next?
So it's very important to be looking at where is your time being spent? How long is it taking you to do certain tasks, right? If you're looking at the end of the day, like, oh, I didn't get anything done on my to-do list. Let's look at, is the to-do list even realistic? Does it have you can only put things on that list that you have the time and the resources to do. And sometimes it's that you're going to take that piece and give it to somebody else to do, and that's okay. But people are not realistic about what they can actually get done in a day or what they can actually get done in an hour sometimes. And so I really push people to test it out, time yourself, because I'm so in tune with what 30 seconds feels like and what a minute feels like from my TV days. Yes. Not everybody else is like that, So I really want you to become your own, produce your own life, be able to be your own producer and really see, okay, what? It takes me 10 minutes to get my makeup done in the morning. So if I'm rushing around, I know I need to leave at least 10 minutes so I can get my makeup on before I get out the door or whatever. So that you at least know, can I fill this, can I fill this time appropriately, or am I going to be late to something else? Is this going to shift and throw everything else off? So I think being realistic with how long things take you, and also being able to stop and say, how do I actually feel when I do these tasks? That was a big thing for me, looking through and saying, okay, how did I feel when I worked with this client? Did I like that client? Did I like this speaking engagement? Was I interested after that workshop? And now I stop myself and I really check in after every single thing I do. I stop myself and I say, okay, before I go on to the next thing, I pause and I say, am I happy? How do I feel at the end of this? And okay, great. I want more of that then. I want more of that in my life. Let me make sure that I put that down. I take a mental note that I want to do more of this.
So finding basically what fuels you versus what drags you down energy-wise. Yes. Yeah. So if I enjoy writing an email, even if it takes me maybe 2 hours, I should still do more of that versus, I don't know, recording a video.
Right. Exactly. Or speaking, for instance, I love speaking. I love being on a stage. I love, working with the crowd. I love all of that. at the end, I always feel charged up. Right before, I'm always a tiny bit nervous, and I'm a tiny bit like, oh gosh, why did I say yes to this again? Why am I doing this? And it melts away the second I get on the stage every time. And then I leave that stage and I'm like, yes, that's what I should be doing more of. That's what I love, leading workshops. But just, you have to check in with yourself and see, there's certain people that I've worked with that are draining. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that again,
Yeah. So you said, okay, be realistic about the tasks you can actually get done. So you're suggesting that for every day that there are a number of tasks that we decide we're going to do, and we actually do them. And if not, we should start to look at why we are putting them on the list in the first place. If they weren't doable, like they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a piece of that you can do. So often people will write, write book. You're never going to write a book in one day. That's never going to happen. So what is the piece of that bigger goal that you can put on the list, and then you feel accomplished to have done that one piece of it? So just being able to sort of reframe, because we want to do all these things, but this is much more a task list of what you can do, so that you set yourself up to really get stuff done.
Do you put it in the calendar, what you want to do?
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. Yeah. Especially if I have like open spaces of time in between, calls or whatever it is that I'm doing. Like for instance, we're doing this interview now. Yeah. And afterwards, I put in my calendar that I have to send some follow-up emails to some people about my book. Yeah. And if I don't do that, I will get distracted. Because there's nothing on my calendar after this until this evening. And so I'll get distracted and I'll start doing other things, and then I'll be on Facebook or something, So I need that for me to be able to say, okay, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is what's allotted for this hour, and then sit down and do it. Not everybody works like that, but I like to take it off the to-do list and put it on the calendar when I have those open spots, so that sometimes I tell my assistant, what should I be doing right now? What should I be working on right now? And she'll say, well, you have to do this, and this. Okay, great. I'll do that one, So I just try to take, again, the decision-making and the guesswork out of stuff, so that it makes it a little easier to actually do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Also, I need it in the calendar, otherwise it doesn't get done. I don't even really have a to-do list. It's more, I know in the calendar what I should be doing next. Yeah. So let's say getting more realistic, scheduling it in the calendar, and then checking in how you feel. What is then beyond that? You some type of a self-care or?
Yeah. So people get self-care wrong. People think that self-care has to be a week-long vacation or a $300 massage. Look, that stuff is awesome. And if you can do it, do it. But I think that puts a lot of pressure on us to say, oh, this is the big gift I'm giving myself. Instead, I say to look at it as small things that you can do throughout the day. Tiny little ways that you can refresh yourself and recharge yourself and feel good. And whether that's, drinking a cup of tea or reading a chapter in a book that you're really interested in, giving yourself that space. So I even tell people sometimes to go on a virtual vacation. Pick a destination that you've been wanting to go to Google Maps, zoom around for 15 minutes, set a timer on your clock, and go find another destination, look at some beautiful places, and then you'll feel refreshed. It doesn't have to be super long. It doesn't have to be super expensive. Just something that's going to charge you up a little bit and make you feel good. I use those things also, so sort of like dangling a carrot to get things done that I don't want to do. So if I'm procrastinating something, I'll say, okay, what's that list of things I really love to do? All right, if I do this one task that I've been really waiting on, I'm going to call that friend, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go, for a walk to go see this, whatever, so that you have it in your mind. If I do this, I get that.
So like giving yourself rewards.
Yes.
Or doing things.
It works.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Self-care is often like, I was also asked recently by clients at Sigrun, it feels like you're working all the time. And I'm like, I'm not. But obviously if I'm doing Facebook Live and pictures, it feels like I am, but I take a lot of time off. So I think overwhelm, or let's say the danger of a burnout, is when you actually don't take proper time off. What would you say? Where should you start? If people feel they have a lot to do, they want to get a lot done, how do they get in that free time without, like you're saying, go on a 3-week vacation?
Yeah. I think also the way that you set up your week is really important. And so that's something that I looked at for myself. And there's exercises in the book too, to get you to look at what are you doing? When are you working your best? Like Mondays for me is sort of sluggish. Like I want to be able to get charged up. And the way I do that is with connecting with people. And so Mondays are really my time when I do lunches or I do phone calls with people, introductory phone calls and stuff like that. You know, I'm not really doing as much coaching if I can help it on Mondays. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, that's my big, you know, I'm coaching people, I'm working with people. That's that. And then Fridays I've kept for creativity. And also for connection. So sometimes I'll do lunches and stuff with people or creativity. It's the day that I wrote my book. So I was like, how am I going to write this book with everything else that I have to do? And I blocked off every Friday. And every Friday I had, you know, several tasks in the day, like we talked about putting it in the calendar of when I was going to write what part of the book, because I had a very, you know, strict deadline. I put that book together. It came out really fast from the beginning of thinking of it until it was published. It was 9 months. So the actual writing portion was 3 months, which is kind of crazy. But I got it done because I was super, super focused and I used Friday to do it. And now that I'm not writing the book anymore, now I'm using Friday again for those kinds of creative, you know, things that really, that charges me up. That makes me happy and excited. So I use that almost as a self-care day as well, even though I'm not going to the spa. You know what I mean? Like for me, that's the writing part is what really makes me happy. So being able to identify that in yourself is a really big deal as well.
Yeah, I would say that you can actually get charged with your work when you're doing different things. Like you say, writing doesn't feel as stressful as maybe having to go to some meetings or doing some calls or whatever, or creating content for your program. Writing is something that is still pleasure when you're not too close to the deadline.
Right, exactly. Within reason, yes.
Yeah, within reason. What about weekends? I see a lot of people working on weekends and then they find it hard to stop.
Yeah, I actually read an article the other day about how people in the UK were taking vacations to catch up on work, which is just so terrible. It's like we've even forgotten how to go on vacation, you know? It's like we're even getting that wrong. And that just broke my heart because it was like, no, you can set yourself up beforehand to make sure you get enough done, to have a support system. So when you take that week off or whatever it is, you are able to recharge and then come back and not feel like you're so overwhelmed. The other thing I do for self-care too is when I come back from any trip, I give myself an extra day where I don't plan anything. I don't have calls. I don't have anything that day after, as much as I possibly can. I can't always do it, but I need that because otherwise I can't just jump right back in. It makes me too frantic feeling. So I might be working, but I'm not like talking to people actively. People don't, you know, I might be getting back to a couple people on email or whatever, but it's not, I don't feel like I have to jump back in. And that for me has been a really huge lifesaver. But I think it's the same with weekends. You really have to push yourself because you could work all day, every day, you know? So sometimes I need to like distance myself and actually get out of the space where I work and make myself leave. Because otherwise you'll just keep doing it. So that's sort of for me, it's like change up the what you're doing, you know, close the computer, go for a walk, make a plan, do something that you're not going to be stuck working.
I find it best to go away now because it's so easy to walk over to my computer when I work from home. And when I really want to recharge, like we wrapped up a launch recently and then immediately after it was finished, it was like Friday afternoon, we rented a car and drove to Washington, D.C. and we spent the weekend there. And then we were on an e-scooter and, you know, you can't be checking your phone when you're on an e-scooter. So that was fabulous, like felt really recharged and ready to tackle the next week.
Yeah, I love it. It's really like you made it impossible to keep working, which is great. You physically cannot do it.
Yeah, I think at least because I love my job and it doesn't feel like work. And I think that's where it gets a little bit dangerous when it doesn't feel like work and you're having so much fun, but you still need to do something else. So when people are feeling like, okay, I am getting more realistic on my task, my to-do lists are actually getting done, does that overwhelm feeling just disappear or is there anything else they need to do?
Well, it could always creep creep back in. This is a constant effort that we have to do, checking in with yourself, making sure you're doing the right things, that kind of stuff. Also, when people ask you to do things, our instincts are usually to say, yes, of course, I want to help. I want to do this. I want to do that. So being able to have some kind ways that you say no. I find this to be a very difficult thing, especially for women, because we want to be helpful. And I look at it like this. For me, if I feel right away like it's something that doesn't align with what I'm doing right now, or I'm too overwhelmed, I say no quickly, like very plainly, very quickly. I cannot make it to that dinner party. I wish I could be there, but I can't do it. Maybe you want to invite so-and-so or whatever. So then the person inviting you has some options. You don't want to wait till the last second or cancel on them like right before. So for me, I look at it almost like Marie Kondo with, does this spark joy? So what is the criteria here? Is like, if I'm promoting something, is this helpful to what I'm promoting? Or is this helpful to, a business, a person I want to know or want to meet? And understanding, like we had kind of talked about before, but like, if this goes away, it's okay. This is not like this opportunity is going to go away forever, or you'll never have anything else to do.
I think the danger is when your to-do list has become so long, you've basically said yes to a lot of things and you can't somehow get out of it. Like, let's say you have promised to do something for someone, or you've even, and I'm constantly battling. I think it's my personality. Like, I just want to be doing stuff for other people constantly.
Sure.
So I'll say yes and let's do it. And I'll have these unrealistic expectations of myself of be able to do it. And somehow I get it done. But yeah, it feels like it's a constant battle though to not say yes to more things. But what if the list is just too long? Should people then go out and contact people and say, hey, I actually said yes to something I should have said no to?
Yeah, I mean, you can. And I find if you are very, very honest, people are fine with it. Just to say, look, I really overcommitted. I should not have said no. I apologize. I should have said no to begin with. I apologize. I shouldn't have said yes. People are pretty open to it. It's not as bad. It doesn't close as many doors as you think. And once you start doing it, you kind of get addicted to it, because it's like, okay, well, I'm in that, no, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to do that. It's only what it really makes me excited and charged up. And it's pretty empowering. But, if the list is too long, I would say you should be looking at the list, right? What are you putting on there also that you don't need to do anymore? What doesn't serve you anymore? What is it that things might be on there that keep popping up that you would like to do, or you could do, but it might not be essential right now. So it might be time to just take that off the list, give yourself permission to say, nope, that's not happening, and just move on.
Yeah. I think that's the piece of just like accepting we will never, when you're ambitious, like we both are, you want to get so many things done. I have this idea that, I could create a photo book and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, a photo book, that takes me like, 10 hours if I do it properly. Right. And then you just have to accept I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. It's not going to happen. That's okay.
Happen.
That's okay.
It's okay. Right. The world continues to
still spin.
It still spins. So your book is called Listful Living. Where does that word, name come from?
Yeah. So the first book is Listful Thinking. Yeah. And that book is really the 101 of list making. Why lists, why you should make them, how you should make them, all of the above. And then this book, Listful Living, is really a journey to become a less stressed version of yourself, to really start living these lists. So looking at, where am I right now with my productivity and with my stress levels, and not judging it, but just look at it and say, okay, you're going to look at it like a journalist and say, that's what my life is like. Then where would you like it to be, right? How would you like to have Fridays off? Would you like, what does your ideal situation look like? And then how do you actually get there? How do you create then lists with more intention? And you're able to put the right things on your list and really get things done that are going to charge you up and make you excited and happy and a better version of yourself. So that's it. Listful living is really being able to live in a way that is, using lists that are not going to drain you and really make sure that you're living the best version of your life that you can.
Yeah. It's interesting that you took your media background, now I will never forget the story about the 19 seconds.
Yes.
When something is 19 seconds, it's 19 seconds. It's not 18, it's not 20, it's 19. That
Exactly.
this has turned into kind of a productivity tool that anyone can use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's not, I mean, yes, it helps people, it helps reporters and anchors and producers all across the country get newscasts on the air, but it can also help you to really define what should be happening in your life and how fast you can do it or not, and if it actually needs to be on your to-do list.
I love it, Paula. I am definitely
Thank
going to dive
you.
in. I know the book is really fresh, so we're going to link that up in the show notes. Is there anything
Terrific.
else that you feel like in terms of overwhelm, avoiding burnout? I like the concept of being a less stressed version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The issue really, and this is from my health and wellness background as a producer for so many years, stress can manifest in so many different ways that you might not even realize. And you might not even realize that you're stressed. You might think, this is just how I feel. This is how my day goes. This is what my life is. You need to take a step back and say, oh, is that why you're getting a headache around the same time every day? Is that why your back hurts? Is that why you have heartburn? Between 70 and 90% of all doctor visits are stress related. So that's huge to be able to identify how you're feeling and understand it might not be normal. It's a huge eye opener for people. So just give yourself the space to kind of look at yourself and look at how you feel and see, is this really working?
Yeah, I think people get all kind of like the appendix, like it can be anything that's bothering you right now. And before you put in some tablets, maybe check if it's stress.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I took a zillion Tums and I made a zillion excuses for why I didn't have to go to the ER, but I really did.
Yeah. And then it was ultimately stress, you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think the stress was sort of the thing that was keeping me from going to get it checked out because I was too like, oh, I got too many things to do. I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where we are so ambitious and we kind of forget to check in with our health. So health is important. I know it from my story. I was unable to work for 7 months. And so making health a priority, that comes number one. It should never take over priority from your business. So Paula, I want to thank you for coming on the show. So what is the best way for people to find you and your book? Is that on Amazon or somewhere else?
Yeah, it's everywhere books are sold. If you go to listfulliving.com, I have all the links there and you can get on my list to get some tips and tricks on how to be more productive. And for media training or, strategy, it's paularizzo.com.
Beautiful. Thank you for coming on the show. And I am excited to make sure that all our listeners become a less stressed version of themselves.
Thank you so much.